Okay, so get ready, because today we're diving into the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. You guys have given us a ton of YouTube videos about these animatronics, and well, let me tell you, they're definitely not your typical Chuck E. Cheese characters.
Definitely not.
We're talking haunted robots, tragic backstories, and honestly, just looking at some of them is super creepy.
It's true. What's so fascinating about Five Nights at Freddy's is that it takes this thing we're all familiar with, childhood entertainment, and turns it into something truly terrifying. It's like they're holding up this dark mirror to all our anxieties about technology and AI.
It's such a good point. I mean, who would thought that animatronic animals could be so scary?
Right.
But you're totally right, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface here. So today we're going to try to give you a better understanding of these animatronics, like not just who they are, but what they represent in this whole FNAF universe.
Exactly. So why don't we start with the basics? Freddy Fazbear and his bandmates, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, the OG crew from the first game.
Okay, so Freddy, he's the brown bear, the front man of the band. Then there's Bonnie the purple bunny on guitar, Chica the chicken, and she's always obsessed with pizza for some reason. And then there's Foxy the pirate fox, who hangs out in Pirate's Cove.
Yeah, and their designs are clearly inspired by those real-life pizza place mascots. But there's something about their blank stares and their jerky movements that just makes them so creepy.
It's like they're trapped between life and death or something, stuck in this endless performance loop.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget about the infamous Bite of 87.
Oh, yeah, the terrifying event where an animatronic bit a security guard and caused some serious damage. People always blame Foxy. But the truth is, the games never actually confirm who did it. It's one of those unsolved mysteries that keeps fans guessing, even all these years later.
Wait, so you're telling me after all this time we still don't know for sure who did it? That's crazy. But I guess no matter who's responsible. The Bite of 87 really sets the stage for this dark turn that the animatronics take. And right at the center of it all is William Afton, the main villain of the series. This guy is seriously messed up.
Yeah, Afton is a complex character, driven by grief obsession and this twisted fascination with life after death. His actions killing children and stuffing their souls into these robots. It all stems from this desire to cheat death and become immortal. And he thinks he can do that using this supernatural energy called Remnant.
Okay, hold on, Remnant. What is that exactly?
So Remnant is basically the life force that's left behind after a soul departs. Afton believes that it holds the key to achieving his twisted ambitions. He creates these elaborate machines to capture and contain it, turning these animatronics into vessels for these poor, tormented spirits.
So these aren't just robots. They're filled with the anguish and rage of murdered children. That's seriously dark.
Yeah.
And that brings us to some of the most iconic characters in the franchise, like Springtrap.
Yeah, Springtrap is a perfect example of how Afton's actions backfire on him. He ends up getting trapped in this spring-locked suit. A malfunction happens, and he's literally crushed inside. The suit becomes his tomb. This gruesome reminder of his crimes.
I've seen pictures of Springtrap. The way you can see this decaying human corpse inside the suit, that's pure nightmare fuel. But he's not the only animatronic with a tragic backstory. What about Circus Baby? Her story is totally messed up too, right?
Yeah, Circus Baby's story is particularly heartbreaking. She was created to entertain children, but Afton secretly added this horrifying claw mechanism to her, meant for kidnapping. And tragically, his own daughter, Elizabeth, ends up becoming the first victim, her soul trapped inside the robot.
Wait, so he basically made a machine that killed his own daughter. That's messed up on so many levels.
It really is.
It's like a Greek tragedy, but with killer robots.
Exactly. And then you have the puppet, another animatronic with this deep connection to the lore.
Oh yeah, the puppet's the one that gives life to all the other animatronics, right? By putting the souls of those murdered children inside them.
That's right. The theory is that the puppet is connected to Charlotte Emily, Henry's daughter. She was murdered by Afton, and her soul is believed to inhabit the puppet, seeking revenge in this twisted form of justice, by giving the other children a chance to fight back.
Okay, that's both tragic and terrifying, this never-ending cycle of violence. And speaking of unsettling, we have to talk about Mangle.
Oh yeah, Mangle's appearance is truly disturbing. It's this jumbled mess of wires and endoskeleton parts. Some people believe that its mangled state represents the destructive nature of children's play, turning what was once an innocent toy into this horrifying creature.
Okay, that's just creepy. But we've barely scratched the surface here. There are so many other animatronics in the FNAF universe, each with their own unique design and backstory. Let's move beyond the main attractions and explore some of the weirder ones, shall we?
I'm game. Where do we start?
How about the mediocre melodies? They're such a strange bunch. You've got Mr. Hippo, who just rambles on and on with these long, pointless stories.
Well, actually, Mr. Hippo's ramblings, they might seem nonsensical, but they actually hint at these deeper themes about mortality and the futility of trying to escape fate.
Wait, really? There's deeper meaning behind those ramblings. I thought it was just random weirdness. You're blowing my mind here.
There's a lot more to unpack in the FNAF universe than meets the eye. Speaking of strange and unsettling, have you heard of Music Man?
Oh, yeah. Music Man. He's the one that looks like a giant spider with cymbals, right? Just looking at him gives me the creeps.
Yeah, his design is definitely unsettling, playing on that primal fear of spiders that a lot of people have. And the way he clashes his cymbals, creating this horrible noise, it's like a warning that things are about to get bad.
Okay, I'm officially terrified. But I'm also kind of curious about Candy Cadet. He's the one that tells those creepy stories, right? But his voice is so weird.
Yeah, Candy Cadet stories are definitely unsettling. A lot of them are about death and loss. And what makes them even creepier is that his voice is actually generated using a text-to-speech program. It's like this robot trying to tell you a bedtime story. But the stories are anything but comforting.
It's that mix of the familiar and the horrifying that makes Candy Cadet so effective. And then you have characters like Prize King, Little Joe, and Gypsy. They just add to the overall strangeness of the FNAF world.
Yeah, these more obscure characters, they're often hidden in the background. They contribute to this feeling of mystery and unease, like little glimpses into this larger, interconnected world, full of secrets and hidden dangers.
They're like those little details that stay with you long after you've finished playing, making you wonder if there's a deeper meaning behind them. But here's something that's been bugging me. A lot of these animatronics have different versions in different games, right? Like Withered Freddy or Toy Chica.
Yeah, those variations usually represent different points in the FNAF timeline. They show how the animatronics have deteriorated over time, or they reflect new design choices made by Fazbear Entertainment. In a way, they're like fossils, offering glimpses into the history of this cursed franchise.
So it's not just about being scared. It's about piecing together this complex timeline and trying to understand how these characters have changed over time. This is getting deep.
The FNAF universe is full of hidden layers, and each game adds another piece to the puzzle. But there's one important thing we haven't talked about yet, the spring-lock suits.
Oh, right. The spring-lock suits. Those are super important to the story, aren't they? But I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Can you explain how they work?
Okay, so they're really ingenious, but super dangerous. Imagine a suit that can transform from a regular costume into a fully functional animatronic. The problem is the mechanisms are very delicate and can malfunction easily. And if the spring locks snap shut while someone's inside, well, let's just say it's not pretty.
Hold on, so these spring-lock suits are literally death traps. No wonder things go so wrong.
The spring lock suits are a constant reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. It's like humanity's hubris trying to create these lifelike machines. They embody the tragic consequences of Afton's reckless pursuit of immortality.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. Those suits aren't just props. They're symbols of the whole FNAF story. They represent the dark side of technology and the price of messing with forces we don't fully understand.
Exactly. They're this chilling reminder that sometimes our creations can become our undoing. But to really understand the extent of the tragedy, we need to dive deeper into Afton's story to see what led him to create these deadly suits and what consequences he ultimately faced.
Okay, I'm ready for the next level of this deep dive. Hit me with the darkest secrets of William Afton.
You know, before we get into William Afton's story, there's another animatronic I think we should talk about. Ballora. She's so different from the other more animal-like designs.
Oh yeah, Ballora, the ballerina. I've always thought her movements were kind of creepy. Like she's graceful, but also unsettling.
It's that mix of beauty and unease. That's what makes her so interesting. Her design plays with our perceptions. She's meant to be beautiful. But those blanked eyes and the way she moves in the dark, it just sets off alarm bells in our minds.
And the fact that she uses sound to navigate.
Yeah.
Because her eyes are always closed. Talk about a sensory nightmare.
Exactly. That vulnerability, her relying on a different sense, makes the player feel even more exposed. You never know where she is. You only know that she's listening, waiting.
Speaking of unsettling, can we talk about Balloon Boy? He might not be the scariest looking animatronic, but he's definitely the most annoying.
Oh yeah, Balloon Boy. He's a master manipulator. He preys on the player's need for resources. He doesn't kill you directly, he just disables your flashlight and ventilation.
Right.
Which leaves you vulnerable to the other animatronics, the ones that are more aggressive.
It's like he's playing with you, enjoying your desperation. And that laugh, it's so grating, so childishly evil.
What's interesting is that Balloon Boy has a few different forms throughout the games. Some of them are even more disturbing than the original.
Wait, really? There are different balloon boys. I thought there was just the one with the annoying laugh and the balloons.
Nope, there's Phantom Balloon Boy. He's this burnt-up apparition, and he actually has a jump scare, unlike the original. And then there's JJ, the female counterpart. She hides under the desk, staring at you with those cold, dead eyes.
Okay, that's creepy. It's like Balloon Boy is the gift that keeps on giving. Nightmares, that is. But, we've been focusing a lot on the animatronics themselves. I think it's time we really got into the story of William Afton, the man behind their creation and their torment.
Absolutely. Afton's story is a cautionary tale, a tragedy driven by grief and obsession. His actions have consequences that affect everyone around him, and they ripple throughout the entire FNAF timeline.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Afton starts out as a brilliant inventor, right? He co-founds Fazbear Entertainment with Henry Emily, and together they create those innovative spring-lock suits. That can be both animatronics and costumes.
Yes. The spring-lock suits were amazing feats of engineering, but they were also ticking time bombs, as we talked about earlier. Their delicate mechanisms were prone to malfunctioning, often with disastrous results.
And that's where the tragedy begins, right? Afton's youngest son is killed in a horrible accident involving one of the spring-lock suits. This is a turning point in the story. It's when Afton starts to lose it.
Consumed by grief and seeking revenge, Afton commits a terrible act. He murders Henry's daughter, Charlotte. And this sets off a chain of events with far-reaching consequences. This is the beginning of his descent into darkness, a spiral fueled by guilt obsession and a desperate desire to change the past.
So the death of his son triggers his obsession with immortality. He becomes fixated on harnessing Remen. He thinks it holds the key to bringing his son back.
Exactly. Afton's grief turns into this dangerous obsession. He dives deeper and deeper into the dark arts, believing that if he captures the souls of children and traps them in the animatronics, he can somehow cheat death and be reunited with his son.
And this is where things get really messed up. He starts killing more children, stuffing their souls into the animatronics, turning them into these vengeful spirits trapped in metal prisons.
Afton's actions create this horrifying cycle of violence and torment. He becomes a puppet master, manipulating the animatronics, using them as tools for his twisted experiments. But his arrogance leads to his downfall. Remember the spring-lock suits?
Oh yeah, those things are cursed. So what happens? Does he get trapped in one?
Ironically, yes. He tries to hide from the spirits of the children he murdered by getting inside the spring Bonnie suit. But the spring locks malfunction, and he's crushed inside. He becomes Springtrap, a decaying symbol of his own evil, forever bound to the animatronics and the souls he condemned.
Wow. It's like he's trapped in his own personal hell, forced to relive the consequences of his actions over and over again. But death doesn't seem to stop him, does it? He keeps coming back.
His soul persists, finding new ways to manifest. He becomes Scrap Trap, a mangled, deteriorated version of Springtrap. And then there's Glitch Trap, a digital version of his consciousness, a virus that continues to spread his influence and corrupt anyone who comes into contact with him.
It's like a horror movie that never ends. Even in death, Afton continues to haunt the FNAF universe.
Yeah.
It's like this chilling reminder that some evils can never truly be defeated. But let's step away from Afton's darkness for a moment and talk about Circus Baby again. I'm really fascinated by her story.
Yeah, Circus Baby's story is a tragedy within a tragedy. As we discussed, she was made to entertain children. She was also secretly equipped with that kidnapping mechanism. And Afton's own daughter, Elizabeth, becomes the first victim drawn to Baby's appearance.
It's just heartbreaking. He basically created a machine that ended up killing his own child.
And the tragedy doesn't end there. Elizabeth's soul is trapped inside Circus Baby, forced to relive her death again and again. It's this cruel twist of fate, a horrifying consequence of Afton's actions.
And then there's the whole scooping room incident, where Circus Baby merges with the other Funtime animatronics to become Ennard. This grotesque thing made of wires and endoskeletons. What was that all about?
Ennard represents the combined consciousness of all the Funtime animatronics, each with their own tragic backstories, and a shared desire for revenge against Afton. They're driven by this desperate need for freedom, to escape from their metal prisons.
And they actually managed to escape right by crawling inside Michael Afton's body, William's son. Talk about a messed up family reunion.
It really shows their cunning and desperation. They're willing to do anything to escape their torment, even if it means taking over the body of a living person. It's a reminder that in the world of FNAF, death isn't always the end.
Okay, that's just gross. But you know what? I think we should talk about some of the lesser-known animatronics. We can't forget about the little guys.
You're right. There are so many fascinating characters that deserve our attention. Where should we start?
How about the mediocre melodies? They're this quirky band of animatronics, each with their own strange personality and disturbing backstory.
Yeah, the mediocre melodies are a great example of how even the seemingly less important characters in FNAF can be surprisingly complex and unsettling. Take Mr. Hippo, for example. He's this purple hippopotamus. And after he kills you, he tells these rambling, nonsensical stories. It's both funny and creepy.
Right, it's like he's trying to distract you from the fact that he just murdered you with this endless stream of pointless anecdotes. And then there's Pig Patch, who quotes ancient Japanese proverbs after he jump scares you. It's so random.
It's like they're trying to make sense of their own existence, their own twisted purpose in this nightmarish world. And then you have Happy Frog, the lead singer of the group. Her appearance is deceptively cheerful, but there's something sinister hiding beneath that fake smile.
I love the mediocre melodies. They're like the comic relief of the FNAF universe.
Yeah.
But with a dark twist, they definitely add to the overall weirdness and unpredictability of the games.
They really embody that unsettling mix of humor and horror that defines FNF. But there are so many other interesting characters we haven't even mentioned yet, like Shadow Freddy, this mysterious figure who pops up throughout the games. He seems to be connected to the souls of the murdered children.
And then there's Springtrap's digital counterpart Glitchtrap. What's his deal? Is he just a digital copy of Afton? Or is there something more to him?
Glitchtrap is a fascinating and terrifying example of how technology can be used to spread evil. He's a virus, a digital ghost, that can infect and manipulate anyone who encounters him, spreading Afton's influence beyond the physical world.
It's like Afton's evil has found a way to live on, to evolve beyond death. Speaking of evolving, what about the new game Security Breach? I've heard rumors about a new villain, Vanny, who seems to be connected to Glitchtrap somehow.
Yeah, Vanny is a fascinating new addition to the FNF universe. She's a follower of Afton, a devoted disciple who carries out his will. Her rabbit costume reminds me of Spring Bonnie, suggesting a direct link to Afton's legacy.
It's like the cycle of violence is continuing, with a new generation of followers carrying on Afton's twisted legacy. It's both fascinating and horrifying to see how this franchise keeps evolving, finding new ways to explore these themes of technology and morality, and the consequences of our actions.
And that's exactly what makes FNF so compelling. It's not just about jump scares and creepy animatronics, it's a complex story that digs into the dark side of humanity. Our fears, our obsessions, and the unintended consequences of our creations.
Okay, so we've explored the origins of the animatronics, their tragic backstories, and the twisted story of William Afton. But there's one more thing about this franchise that I find really unsettling. The way sound is used to create this terrifying atmosphere.
Yes. The soundscape of FNF is a masterpiece of horror. It's this carefully crafted blend of subtle cues and jarring noises, designed to keep you on edge, to make you feel vulnerable.
It's not just the jump scares, it's the creaking metal, the distant laughter of children, the eerie music playing in the background. It all works together to create this feeling of unease, like something is always watching, always waiting.
And what's so brilliant is how FNF uses sound to mess with our expectations. The things that usually make us feel comfortable and safe, like a child's laughter or the tune of a music box, are twisted into something sinister and threatening.
Like the music box in FNAF 2. It's supposed to be soothing, right? But it becomes this symbol of impending doom. If you don't wind it up, the puppet comes after you. It's like a constant reminder that you're never truly safe, even in the quiet moments.
And then there are those distorted radio frequencies and static that some of the animatronics make. It's like they're trying to talk to us. But their messages are all garbled and distorted, full of pain and anger. It adds to the mystery and unease, making you wonder what horrors they've seen, what secrets they're trying to tell.
And don't even get me started on the voice acting. The things the animatronics say are often so cryptic and unsettling. They leave you with more questions than answers. It's like they're hinting at their tragic pasts, the darkness that's consuming them.
They're inviting us to dig deeper into the lore, to unravel the mysteries and piece together their fragmented stories. But be careful. The truth is often more horrifying than fiction.
Okay, that's enough nightmare fuel for one day. But before we wrap things up, I want to get your take on something. We've talked about the animatronics, their backstories, the lore. What do you think FNAF is really about? What's the message behind all this madness?
That's a really interesting question. I think at its core, FNAF is a reflection of our anxieties about technology and the potential consequences of our creations. It's a warning about what could happen when our creations turn against us, when the lines between humans and machines start to blur.
It's so true. I mean, these are just animatronic animals,
That's
right?
right.
But they represent something much bigger, something deeper. It's about our fears, our desires, and the dark side of human nature.
And I think that's one of the reasons why FNAF has been so popular. It's not just a horror game, it's a cultural phenomenon that speaks to our deepest fears and anxieties.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish playing, leaving you with this sense of unease and this feeling that there's always more to uncover.
Exactly. FNAF is a world of endless possibilities, of hidden meanings and unanswered questions. And that's part of what makes it so appealing. It invites us to explore, to theorize, to delve deeper into its mysteries, even though the truth is often more terrifying than we can imagine.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the origins of the animatronics to the ethics of AI, and the unsettling power of sound in creating a terrifying atmosphere. But I think it's time for us to step back from the darkness for a bit and let all this information sink in. So welcome back to our deep dive into Five Nights at Freddy's. You know, as we've been talking about these animatronics and their stories and everything, it's become pretty clear that this isn't just some simple horror story. There are some seriously deep ideas going on here.
I totally agree. FNF really digs into our fears about technology and morality, and even consciousness itself. It's a story that makes you think even after you're done playing.
Right. Like on the surface, it's about haunted robots and jump scares. But the more you learn about it, the more you realize it's saying something about our relationship with technology. We keep creating these super advanced machines. But what happens when they get too smart? What if they develop their own sense of self, their own desires?
That's a question that's becoming more and more relevant as technology keeps advancing. AI isn't science fiction anymore. It's part of our world, and it's changing things fast. And FNAF kind of serves as a warning. It makes us think about the possible consequences of our creations, the ethical side of AI.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We can't just keep pushing technology forward without thinking about the risks. But you know, there's something else about FNAF that I find fascinating. The way it uses childhood imagery to create this feeling of dread.
Ah, yes. The corruption of childhood innocence. It's everywhere in the games. You see it in the animatronics themselves. They're supposed to be for kids, but they're twisted into these horrifying monsters. And the environments, too. The pizza places, the amusement parks. Those are places we associate with happiness and fun. But in FNAF, they're turned into these nightmarish traps.
It's like FNAF is taking our happy childhood memories and warping them, showing us how easily innocence can be corrupted, how fast things can go bad.
Exactly. It taps into this primal fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the things that hide in the shadows of our childhood. It reminds us that even in the places that seem safe and familiar, there can be darkness lurking just beneath the surface.
And it's not just the visuals, it's the sounds, the music, the whole atmosphere. Everything is meant to make us feel uneasy, like we're constantly on edge.
The sound design in FNAF is incredible. It takes familiar sounds like kids laughing or a music box playing, and it distorts them, turns them into something sinister and threatening.
Like a lullaby sung by a demon. You know, as we've been talking, I've been wondering about the motivations of the animatronics. Are they just mindless killing machines? Or is there something more going on?
That's a question that's been debated by FNAF fans for years. Some people think they're just malfunctioning robots, acting on faulty programming. Others believe they're possessed by the souls of the kids who were murdered, seeking revenge against Afton and anyone who gets in their way.
And then there's the theory that they're trying to protect children, to stop more tragedies from happening. Like they're stuck in this in-between state, caught between their programming and their new awareness.
That's one of the things that makes FNAF so captivating. It leaves things open to interpretation. We can project our own fears and anxieties onto these characters. Are they monsters, victims, or something in between? There's no easy answer, and that ambiguity makes it even scarier.
It's like we're looking into a distorted mirror and seeing a reflection of ourselves, a reflection that shows us both the good and the bad. And that brings me to my last thought. We've talked a lot about the animatronics and their stories, but what about us, the players? What role do we play in all this?
That's an interesting question. We're not just watching this unfold, we're part of the story. We take on the roles of security guards, investigators, even victims. We're drawn into this world of horror, forced to face the darkness head on.
And in a way, we become part of this cycle of violence. We're the ones who keep coming back, night after night, drawn to the mystery, the fear, the thrill of surviving.
It's a dark kind of fascination, a need to confront our fears and come out on top. But it also makes us think about our own reasons for being there. Why are we so drawn to horror? What does it say about us that we enjoy these terrifying experiences?
Those are questions we all have to answer for ourselves. But as we finish up this deep dive into Five Nights at Freddy's, I think it's important to remember that it is just a story, a work of fiction.
Right. It's meant to entertain, to scare us, to make us think. but it's not real.
But even though it's not real, there's something about FNAF that sticks with you. Long after you stop playing, it taps into something primal, something deep inside us.
Maybe it's a reminder that even with all our technology, we're still vulnerable to the darkness, both inside ourselves and in the world around us.
So as you leave this deep dive and go back to your lives, keep your eyes open and your ears alert, and never forget, the things that go bump in the night might be closer than you think.
Sweet dreams.